That's all of us. Somebody's got to be on the TV.
But I'm gonna be on TV.
Well, come here.
Tell her.
We're live.
I'd like to go ahead and call the Public Safety Committee meeting for May the 9th to order. Do I have a second?
Second, sorry.
And do we have an acceptance of the agenda?
Yes.
And do we have a motion to approve the April 11th minutes?
I so move.
A second.
All those in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Okay, next on the agenda is ordinance and resolution. We are going to talk about, we're going to skip the first one for a minute and go down to other agenda items. Are you
Okay.
okay with doing that?
Sure.
All right. And discuss the fleet replacement program that was sent back to the Public Safety Committee from BOMA for us to look and see if we could come up with any changes or alterations.
My personal feelings are that I am not comfortable expanding beyond. I'm not comfortable increasing the timeline or the miles for the police cars. I am not comfortable increasing the timeline for the fire apparatus either, because there's a national standard, and I feel that my constituents expect us to be above average, not below.
I still have the same feeling that I had before. I am not willing to change the mileage, which right now in the ordinance is 5 years on police cars or 100,000 miles and 15 years on the fire truck. And that's what I would like to stay with. I have done some research that I've shared with y'all as far as cost. It's something that the police department may or may not want to look into. I think it could possibly be cost savings for you. It's the hybrid vehicles. They're a little more upfront, but the savings are lower over the course of the 5 years. Even on the hybrids, I'm not willing to go more than 100,000 miles on those. I think public safety is our number one priority. So I would still like to leave that in the ordinance.
You understand though, we've talked that I am totally against switching to hybrid vehicles. We've got the best police car on the market today, and we don't need to change that.
Would you be willing to go test drive them?
I'll let Jim test drive it. I'll watch him.
Okay. So I've reached out to several different departments to get their feedback, and they are newer, so there's not a ton of feedback. But the bulk that I have reached out to, the savings has been, quite a bit. So it's something to consider.
I saw where the Tennessee Highway Patrol has been using them for a couple of years, but I don't know if they, in 2 years, if they really have enough.
I don't think so. I think anytime you change the mechanics or something like that, you're putting services at risk. I don't believe that they will perform as well as a revenue vehicle.
Is the gas.
So I did talk to one department that's using them, and they said it's kind of early for them, but over the past couple of years that they have had them, they have had some issues with they've had more issues with those than with the gas, as far as the check engine light coming on, delays in service at their Ford dealership due to I guess parts maybe being harder to obtain. I'm not sure. He didn't specify why they were having trouble with servicing them. They did have an engine failure and a transmission failure on 2 separate vehicles. He said, fortunately, they were under warranty when that occurred. So warranty did take care of them. But he said at this point, what they're seeing is they have had more issues with them being in the shop. They had one, I guess, were down for 3 months waiting on some specific part from Ford. There's one of their hybrids. So that's just something to keep in mind also.
And I'm more worried about safety. If they're taking off and it switches from whatever in offsetting stalls in the intersection. I don't trust them. And I know that we searched and searched when Ford quit making their Crown Vics for a good police car. We went through a wrong selection the first time, and we went out and started looking in these cars and that other agencies had. And I'm convinced that the Ford PPV is the best police car on the market today, and I think that's what we should stay with.
Okay. My feeling on it hasn't changed whether we do hybrid or the ones that you currently have. I personally would like to send it back to BOMA with the 5-year, 100,000 miles. Pull them out of service at 100,000 miles. Have the fire engine pulled out at 15 years it goes to reserve for 5 years at that point, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Based on the standard from the fire NFPA. I just don't feel like that I could argue with what they're recommending. So my recommendation would be to send it back with the 15-year and the 5-year, 100,000 miles. I don't know how y'all feel.
I agree with you. The question in my mind that I'd like for us to discuss is whether or not we would choose to include this information in the binder when we send it back to BOMA, because while, if it were just up to you and I, that's what we would do. But we know that there are people on BOMA who are not supportive of that and are looking for ways to save money. And this might be a way to compromise. And maybe we could start out buying
I would like to
3 and see how they do, and not switching completely, but just buying 2 or 3, or whatever is appropriate. I don't know.
Yeah,
And
you're
just
still
see-
putting 3 of those people, in my opinion, at risk. So I think you've got the right car, stick with it. And I agree. I appreciate y'all doing that 5 years and 100,000 miles, but let's don't take away from even what Jim's talked about the problems with getting it fixed and breaking down. Let's don't take away from the quality of vehicle we have to make amends for this other.
Yeah, and even if you did not accept that information and did accept that if you felt like they were completely the same vehicle, sending this to BOMA might just muddy and confuse things further and make it harder for us to come to a decision as a board.
I think, say we send it to BOMA at the 5-year, 100,000 miles, send the fire truck at the 15-year, pull it out, and then I'll be glad to set up a test drive and then leave it up, with their budget of what they choose to do.
But a test drive is not gonna tell you what he just told you about talking to his other departments. We don't want cars that are in the shop all the time, and that's what he's seen based on his research in that. So I'm thinking that's the biggest mistake we could ever make, is even putting that on the table and letting someone make that decision. From a lot of years of experience, okay, if you choose something bad, you're going to pay for it in the long run. It's going to cost you more in the long run.
My primary concern is keeping them out of the shop is important, but my primary concern is keeping the officers as safe as we can.
Absolutely.
By giving them a vehicle that is not deteriorated to the point of 175,000 miles plus the idle time. I don't think they're safe. And then they might have to drive at 115, 120 miles an hour. So I don't want to do that. And I guess I need to learn more about, you said you were concerned about the hybrid when it switches over.
Yeah.
And I'm
looks
not,
at that.
I
And
don't
it
know.
staying broke down all the time.
yeah.
You know, and that's what
I just want them to be in the safest cars that we can provide.
we've got 'em. That's what we need to say.
But now we need to be able to provide them.
Never had a problem before doing it, so I don't know why the city would have a problem doing it today.
Except for that you've got so many that are at 175,000 or 150, and to me that's not our best effort.
But we've been moving away from that for the last several years, thanks to Jim. He's really stayed on top of getting the cars replaced, and he's just about got it where we need to be. So I'm
Yeah,
How
we're,
many-
thinking if it works, we'll mess with it.
How many cars down are you right now?
I don't have that figure with me. I know, we're gonna order some right after July, of course, mid-year, board approved 10. I know there's a motion going forward to increase that some 5 right now. So that's definitely going to help. That's almost cut that deficit in half.
Have you talked to more than one agency about the issues?
I have placed multiple phone calls, and I actually had to reach out to a friend of mine that's chief with another department and get somebody's cell phone today for that department to call them direct. I wasn't getting any calls back. So, everybody's just busy. I think a lot of agencies are going through budget right now, so they're, it's just hard to get a hold of somebody. But the one I did reach out to, and I've tried to reach out to THP to talk to their fleet service manager. And I've left a message
We
for
talked to him extensively.
You know,
So do you want to make a motion to send it back to BOMA without this, with this? What do you want to do?
I'm sorry that I was late as we're wrapping up in my last meeting. I don't know what this is, so can I catch up here?
That's the hybrid savings and fuel.
And you're wanting to make this
Back to BOMA.
BOMA? I'm sorry, I feel like I missed a lot of that coming in.
That's okay.
What was your motion to?
So we're trying to decide if we would make a motion. Terry and I are in agreement that we don't want to increase the timeline from the original resolution on
The
any
5-year,
of the,
100,000 mile and the 15-year on the fire truck.
and it was, different for CID and for
Right.
admin. And the 15 years on all fire apparatus. That's what we feel comfortable with. Terry did this research to provide an alternative way for us to potentially save some money, since our recommendation is not to use the schedule that was proposed at the last or to whenever it was. But the chiefs are telling us they don't want any part of it, basically.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, to paraphrase.
We have the best police car on the market today, and we need to stick.
So we could, we would like your opinion on if you want to stick with the original resolution timing, if you want to include this information, pass this information to BOMA, or just leave it out of the packet for the next meeting. And I'm assuming it can go to the next meeting because the resolution is not in our, yeah.
Typically, we need a resolution written before this next meeting, but it was written and
It was
sent back
written
here.
and sent back.
Yeah.
Do you have any comments?
Not really. I need to look over exactly what the board asked a couple of weeks ago. I think it was just it came back here. I don't think the board asked for anything specifically. Just
Yeah, they wanted us to discuss it again.
Okay. So I think if we send it back to them, I mean, we definitely should include this information. And you're against,
They don't want the information to go.
I don't know if they care if information goes. They just don't want us to.
To make them get the
to,
hybrids, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think you were right. You muddy the waters when you send that information and make that an alternative. And
Honestly,
we
it
need
might
to
make us harder
need
for our
to-
board to come to a decision. Although,
And that
it
will
might
give
help,
them
you
some,
just don't know.
that will give them some time possibly to reach out and, how about if I get with the chiefs and we reach out before it goes? Does this have to go to the next meeting or do you want to wait till I can come back and report to you?
who are the sponsors?
I'm originally, and then you are
Okay.
added, and
I don't
Was
know
Eddie?
if Eddie's
I
on
don't
it or not.
know. He got voluntold
Okay.
to sponsor. I don't know if he really wanted to. And okay, you do.
I think I've got to take it back. I think I've got to put it on the next agenda because the board voted to come back here and
Okay.
come back to them. Now, if any of the if all the sponsors want to withdraw it, that's fine.
No, we don't want to
No.
withdraw it.
We can put it on the next BOMA and we'll talk. We can just send it as is, I guess, for now.
you're saying without this.
We can always hand this out at the meeting without it being included in the packet, right?
Absolutely.
People do that all the
Okay.
time. So we can defer on that decision for now.
Okay.
So,
You make a motion?
oh, I move that we send the original resolution back to
Back to
BOMA.
Okay.
With any changes?
No.
No,
Okay.
no changes. I'll
I don't
second.
mind sending, okay. I don't mind sending this with it.
Okay,
I mean, I want as much information as possible, I think is important.
okay.
Real quickly clarifying, is there a recommendation from this committee?
Positive recommendation.
Positive
Recommendation of support. And, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
Okay, so we will send that back to BOMA with a positive recommendation.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now we will go back to ordinance 2023-10 to establish reasonable court cost. And that ordinance is, our court costs are currently $125. We would like to raise those to $175. We would also like to include, and in this ordinance, it's included, a $25 fee for people that don't show for court. And we have Judge Edwards here who could give us an explanation or help us with this.
You want me to explain the failure to appear one?
The failure to appear and our raising the court cost.
Yeah, well, I'll start with the failure to appear. I went to a seminar recently and I learned that by state statute, cities, municipalities are allowed to assess any kind of cost. I guess they call it a fine or a contempt for failing to come to court. It's not like, city court is not like criminal court or general sessions where it's a crime for failure to appear. So that's really the only penalty that can be assessed by law. So the city attorney and I spoke about it, and there are a lot of people that do not appear, and this is if they don't pay ahead of time or appear in court. And today, how many did not appear in court or pay today?
We had 81 in court and 45 FTOs.
45 did not appear today, so it was well over half. I mean, sometimes it's not that many. And so that's just assessed as a separate cost of contempt of court. And they may not pay it, but it goes, in order for them to have their license reinstated, they would eventually need to pay that. So that would generate some income. And also part of this ordinance, I thought was good, because this is a policy that I've been doing, was if they cure anything, for example, if the most common is if they do not have their registration current, and then they come, when they do not have their registration when they're stopped, and then they come to court and they prove that it has been, they've gotten their tags renewed, then I assess half the court costs. I'll dismiss it upon payment of half the court costs, and this codifies the policy that we've been doing. And so that new cost would be, half of the court cost would be $87.50 if you're gonna increase it to $175. I can't think, let me see if there's any,
Can I ask you a question? When was the last time the court cost was raised? Was it 2012?
It said that in here.
Yeah, it's been a while.
over 10 years.
Okay.
Over 10 years, it's been $125.
So we're right in line with,
It says
With Brexit.
2016.
Well, if I may,
okay.
so in 2012, I think it was raised, but it was raised also that it would increase by 10% every single
That's right.
year,
Mhm.
not to exceed 125. And I think that stopped in 2016 when it hit
Okay.
125. But what I could research. I could
Got that makes sense. One of the things I appreciated about this is that it does allow for people who have broken items with their car, as Russ was talking about, to pay a little less, because I think potentially if you have a broken item with your car, it's because you can't afford to fix it. So adding court costs,
Mhm. Yeah, they can get
Yeah.
half.
yeah,
the-
I appreciate that a
Yeah.
lot. I think that's the right thing to do.
Right. Yeah, I think it's appropriate in like window tint, if they come and they've proven that they no longer have that tint or it's less, and that might be where the officer actually goes to their vehicle and sees and proves to the court that they have cured whatever they were cited with, and yeah, we can do half the court costs. And it's dismissed, charges dismissed, so.
So I think it's fair and reasonable, personally.
Do you want to make motions?
I,
Send it to vote? Does
I
anyone have
do.
any more questions, comments?
Miss Monroe is here if anybody wants to ask her anything.
She
But
said
she-
she wanted to get us talking, but
No, I didn't say.
She does a great job in the court.
She does. I ask her a lot of questions.
After 45 years, I should be good at it, right?
The one thing that I know the mayor has talked about, fees being commensurate with our expenses, and not having fees that were for us to earn income, and like we don't operate the city as a speed trap to generate income. But I think this is
Correct me if I'm wrong. We can't, the fees are set by the state, correct?
Well, not the court costs.
Not the
right?
court costs, but the
I
fine.
guess that's
Right.
the court costs would support, it still is in a situation where it would support the cost of operating the court. And it's not gonna be like we're doing this to generate huge amounts of revenue for the city, which is why I think it's fair.
I spoke with MTAS, the gentleman that the judge spoke to, who's kind of like the guru of MTAS for court cost. And of course, $50 is the maximum fine. $13.75 goes to the state plus another $1. So it's really, the total fines would be $175 plus 50 plus 13.75 plus 1. I said total fines, but total cost and fees and fines. But the MTAS gentleman, Mr. John Eskew, said that we're right in line.
Yeah.
He mentioned the highest being up in Sevierville, and I think their city court costs are $235 or something like that. So our city court costs are 175 right now. He didn't seem to have any issue with it.
Okay, I like it. So yeah, I move to send it to BOMA with a positive recommendation.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion approves to move. Does anyone have any other business? Anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. Second.
All approved? We are adjourned.
Very nice to see you again.
Good to see you.
It's like old home week for you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brenda.
Thank you.
It's always good to see Brenda.